was basically in the hospital for 8 months. I lost 120 pounds. I had brain damage. I lost the ability to speak. I didn't recognize my wife or my kids. There were a couple times they sort of implied to my wife that they didn't think I was going to make it, but here I am.
It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis. Today we have a very special guest. His newest album, Broken, went #1 on the Billboard Blues chart.
Yes,
Walter Trout. How are you?
You know, I'm still alive. Every day is a bonus. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Recently on social media, you posted that you had gotten a new touring vehicle. And then you posted a photo of what it looks like now. Can you explain what happened?
We ordered the vehicle custom built by Ford back on my wife's birthday, December the 5th. They worked on it for 6 months. They built it. They delivered it, 3-4 days before our driver left. Our driver left to drive to, where was the first gig? I can't even remember. Duluth. He was supposed to drive to Duluth, and he was smashed into by a driver going the wrong way on the street, and the van is totaled. And I'd love to not discuss it anymore because it's pretty depressing.
But he's doing okay.
Oh, he's doing fine. The van's totaled. He's all right. Thank God. The poor guy, the airbags went off, not just in his face, but on his side. He lost steering. He lost brakes. The van and trailer went off the road, through a field, and finally came to a rest. And, he's all right. He's a little shook up. Nervousness, his nervous system. But
yeah, well, we're definitely glad to hear that he's doing okay and none of you were in there at the time.
So we can get another van, but he's all right, yeah.
So right now, we're in Omaha, Nebraska, and you recently had the 10th anniversary of your liver transplant.
Yes.
Here in Omaha. What does it mean to you to be back here in Omaha?
It is a flood, a tsunami of emotions and memories. And the gig last night was almost tough for me because I was so overwhelmed with memories and feelings, and that there were times I'd be in the middle of a solo and it was time to come back in singing, and I'd think, what song am I playing? It was hard to actually keep focus on what I was doing because I was having all these memories and incredible deep emotions and gratitude. This is the team that saved my life. This medical team and my wife, worked together, and some of them were there. My surgeon was in the front row last night. The man who actually put the liver in me. And so it was just really almost surrealistic. And it's like 10 years. Sometimes you put it back in your past and you move on, but then to be back here was incredibly emotional and poignant.
Yeah, you got really emotional during the set.
I did.
What was in your head? What were you thinking?
The fact that everything I went through here, I was basically in the hospital for 8 months. I lost 120 pounds. I had brain damage. I lost the ability to speak. I didn't recognize my wife or my kids. There were a couple times they sort of implied to my wife that they didn't think I was going to make it. And but here I am.
Yeah, here you are, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah, well, me too.
So you had to relearn how to play.
I did.
What was that process like?
I not only had to relearn how to play, I had to get physical therapy and learn how to use my legs again. As a matter of fact, one of the memories we had today, my wife and I, was her rolling me around this section of Omaha in a wheelchair because I couldn't walk, and that was after the surgery, because I had been in bed for so many months. And then I got speech therapy to sort of get it together again, how to speak. And I still get tongue-tied. Like, I'll have the experience where if I'm on the microphone at a gig and there's an audience, and I'm in the middle of a sentence and trying to tell a story or trying to convey something, and somebody yells something at me, I go blank. And I have to say to a band member, what was I talking about, you know? But then along with that, we went home. We finally went home. It seemed like I was going to survive. And my son, John, who played last night, John came walking in with a Fender Stratocaster and handed it to me, and I realized I didn't know how to do it anymore. Not only did I not have the strength to press the string to the fret, I was that weak, but I didn't know what to do with it because I had had brain damage. And I wasn't sure what to do. I had these thoughts, okay, I'm alive. I can have a life with wife and kids, and I can figure out something else to do with myself. But it was my sweet wife who said, no, you need to start over. Just sit down, teach yourself all over again. So I worked on it 6-7 hours a day, every day for over a year, and it came back.
You mentioned your wife, Marie. You were together on stage last night. How special was that moment for you?
It was amazing. It was amazing. Some of these questions, it's almost hard to find words to say. Like, she came up on stage when I told the story of the song, Please Take Me Home. And the story of that song was this: when I was in the hospital here, and it had been months and months, and we were waiting for a liver and waiting and waiting. And every day I was close to death. I finally decided, I'm not going to make it. This is futile. And if I'm going to die, take me back to Huntington Beach. Let me die in my own bed. I'd tell her, take me home, baby. And she would crawl into the bed, wrap her arms around me and say, okay, Walter, you are home. And that's what the song is about. And I was telling that story to the audience with her, you know, next to me. And it was, it's hard to even express.
You mentioned your son. You two had a great moment during the set. How fun was that to kind of have just a little face-off with your son on stage?
You know something? I've said this to a lot of people, that as far as playing music, I think the most fun I have is when I have the opportunity to play with my kids. Marie and I have 3 kids, and they're all musical virtuosos. And so whenever one of them can get up and play music with me, it's probably my most joyous musical experience. It really fulfills me as far as, yeah, Walter, you're here, you're alive, your kids are grown, you're playing music, you've got this second chance, you know.
You're celebrating 37 years of being sober.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you.
What was the turning point for you?
There was a few. I can start by saying that it goes back when the Lowell George died and Little Feat broke up in, what was that, the late 80s, mid 80s. The drummer from Little Feat, Richie Hayward, played with me for 2 years. And he was sober, and I was not. And he kept on me, man, like, what are you doing? You know, because we'd start the evening, I'd be playing great, and by the end of the evening, I was hammered and I couldn't play, and he'd be, you know. And then I was also, at that time, I was still touring with John Mayall. You know, when Richie was playing with me, I had the house band at a bar at the beach in Huntington. Whenever I was not touring with Mr. Mayall, John Mayall was sober, and he would talk to me quite a bit about it. And it was always kind of in the back of my head, but the turning point really came when I was in East Berlin, Germany. It was still communist. It was 1987. And I was in East Berlin, Germany, and the band, Carlos Santana and his band, were staying in the same hotel, and we were all in there for like a week. And he was at the gig, and he kind of came up to me and said, "What are you doing?" And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He goes, first off, Walter, you're in a band that 100,000 guitar players around the world would give anything to be John Mayall's lead guitarist and stand in the spot of Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Mick Taylor, these great musicians, and you're there. And he goes, and you have a gift of music, but you're so drunk up there. I'll never forget. He went, "You're doing that to where you got the gift." And he gave me a book. He said, "Go read this book." I still have the book. And then we spent 2 days just hanging out in the hotel and having these amazing conversations. And I finally went to John Mayall and said, "You will never see me messed up again." And it's been 37 years.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks. And once I made that decision, it was not that difficult, but I had to really hit bottom. It seems like a cliche, yeah, you got to hit bottom, but it's true. But sometimes the bottom keeps getting lower and lower, and I was there.
Yeah. You mentioned John Mayall. How did you get that gig?
I got that gig because I was in Canned Heat, and John Mayall had put the original Bluesbreakers back together again with Mick Taylor, John McVie, and Colin Allen. This was 1981. And we went and did 3 shows with them. We did Berkeley, San Francisco, and Santa Cruz. And I became friends with John. I became friends with Mick Taylor and John McVie, and we were all hanging out together for those 3 days. And at the end of the 3 days, John Mayall said to me, "Well, what's Canned Heat going to do now?" And I said, "Well, they're taking like 3 months off." And he said, "Well, why don't you come out with us? I'd love to hear you play guitar with Mick Taylor." So suddenly there I was playing with the original Bluesbreakers, which was amazing to me because when those guys were making those iconic albums, I was in high school. And I kind of learned to play by listening to those albums and like stealing their licks,
Yeah.
And but there I was, and I went out at first with the original Bluesbreakers. Then I went back on tour with Canned Heat, and about a year later, John called, and it gets better. Right after that, John hired Canned Heat to tour with him, and we became his backup band. And we toured America and Canada as John Mayall and Canned Heat. And we did a TV concert that you can find on YouTube. And then after that, he decided to put together a new Bluesbreakers, and he got me and Coco Montoya as the 2 guitar players. And I stayed with him then till 1989. So there's a long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, that's great. How did the Canned Heat gig come about?
I was playing with some amazing blues musicians who were John Lee Hooker's backup band, Deacon Jones and Finest Tasby. And I was playing with them. And I was also playing with an amazing old piano player named J.D. Nicholson, who some Los Angeles blues fans will remember J.D. And we were playing at the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach. And some kind of biker-looking fellas came in and listened to me one night. They came back the next night, and they said, "Hi, we're Canned Heat. This is our manager. We're looking for a guitar player. Are you interested?" And that was that.
Yeah,
Of course I'm
easy answer.
interested.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I was playing with these guys at night, but I was working in Costa Mesa in a warehouse that produced trash bags, and I would count 10 of these garbage bags, put them in a different bag, and throw that into a bucket. And I did that for 8 hours a day. So when Canned Heat said, "You want to go on tour?" Yes, I'm there. So, and that was 1980.
Definitely impressive stuff. Speaking of impressive, one of the things that really sticks out to me looking at your career is how prolific you are as a songwriter and
Well,
how
thank
frequently you're able to put out albums and you keep the material at a high level.
Thank you very much.
What keeps you going?
I love it. And I also, even after 31 albums and being 73 years old on my second liver, I still have things I want to say. As a matter of fact, at the end of this tour, I'm home for 3 weeks in Huntington Beach, and that is my time. I'm going to write a whole new album in that 3 weeks. And I love the process of writing a song. And I'm also married to an award-winning songwriter, so we do a lot of it together. And it's a fun experience to do that with my wife. As a matter of fact, the song Broken that I did with Beth Hart, 80% of the lyrics of that song are by my wife, Marie, And I love the idea of writing a song, and it's just something I never want to stop doing. And I thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people go, "Oh, Walter Trout, he plays the guitar and he's this or that," but I'm serious about my songwriting, and I want those songs to be personal. I want them to be honest. I want them to be from my heart and soul. I don't want them to be fluff. I don't put filler in my albums.
When you get inspiration, what's the first thing that you do?
Well, if I get inspiration musically, an idea, I record it into something. I have a little recorder on my phone. If I get inspiration for lyrics, I record them. Now, I have a phone that's a European phone from when I was in Denmark during the pandemic, and that has probably 600 ideas in it. I have a computer in Huntington Beach that probably has 400 ideas. I have a little Tascam recorder in my bedroom that probably has 80 or 90. And so when I say, well, I can go through those and find something that's good, but I normally end up, when it's time to write, I come up with new stuff,
What's the oldest idea that ended up on an album?
Oh, man. Probably my second album, which was not out in America. It was called Prisoner of a Dream. I did it for a Scandinavian label in 1990. I was actually recording this album when I met Marie in Denmark, but I put a song on there that was the first song I ever wrote, and it's called Earrings on the Table. And it was my first girlfriend in New Jersey. We'd been together, and she had left to go home to go back to her parents. And she had left one of her earrings on the table, and there was some cigarette ashes on the floor. And I wrote this song for her, and I put it on that second album. So that was my first song. So that's as far back as I can go,
When you write an album, is it you're usually finding a designated amount of time where you go, I've got this window, I'm going to write the album then? Or is it, okay, I'm going to write a song here or write a song there?
I'm not a guy who, like a lot of songwriters, they're on the road, say they're in their hotel room and they start writing songs. I can't do that. I have to be alone for a while. I have to get myself into somewhat of an emotional zone. And I can get myself into that zone by listening to certain music that will really affect me emotionally. And that can be anything like Charlie Mingus to Joni Mitchell to Luther Vandross to Blind Willie Johnson to Otis Redding. It can be certain things. And if I listen to them, they put me into a certain frame of mind, and suddenly I can get very creative after that. And then I can sit down and write a whole album in a week or two.
Wow.
But as my wife would say, when I go into that zone, I'm not on the planet. I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. It just becomes, here comes this stuff,
You're just locked into that.
I'm locked into the creative thing. And I have to be in that emotional, it's not always fun, you know. And sometimes I will find, like after I did Ride 2 albums ago,
Yep.
and it was done, and I got away from it for a while, and I sat down and put it on one day, and I went, I didn't do this on purpose, but this entire album is about my childhood. And it is. Every song on there is about my childhood. So I guess that was on my mind when I wrote the record, I didn't do that on purpose. I've had people ask me, man, you did a whole song about when you were a kid, a whole album. Well, I didn't try to, it just came out that way.
Yeah. One of the cool things I think about your career, Walter, is you use your platform to help up-and-coming artists and younger artists. A lot of times you share the stage with them. Mm-hmm. Why is that important for you?
It is important for me because I love talent. I love to see people with real talent, not people who are corporately produced or mass marketed, but some kid comes up to me and they can play and they can sing and they can write and they want to get somewhere and they're just trying to start off. First, they remind me of myself at that age, and then I'm like, I'm in a position that I can give them a little boost. I can give them some help. I can also be their cheerleader. And I love doing that for young people. And I've done it for a lot of them. I have a lot of proteges out there,
Yeah.
The band that played after me last night, King, Alan Nimmo, came up to my wife and I, and he has a photo of him at 16 standing right in front of me at a gig in Glasgow. And he's right there, and I'm playing. And so there's another one right there, and I love doing that for them. I wish somebody would have done that for me. I had a lot of years of struggle, and I also know that when I finally do go, those people will look back and go, yeah, that was a good guy. And that's important to me.
You mentioned that experience with Alan. How does that make you feel when someone comes up to you and shares that with you?
It's very fulfilling. I want this life to be about something. I want it to be fulfilling. I can't even find the word, but it just makes me feel great. And I'm more power to you, man. Go get them, go get them, man. Go out there, show the world what you got, and I wish you all the best. I hope you just rise to the heights, and I can look at you and go, right on,
Who are some up-and-coming artists right now that are impressing you?
King. If you listen to them, they're incredible.
Listened to them last night. They were great.
Yeah, I have a lot of Ainsley Lister, who I think is on this festival.
He's playing tonight as we're recording this at the Playing with Fire in Omaha. Yeah.
And he's somebody, I heard him when he was 15. I took him to a record label and I played on his first album like 20 years ago. I think he's incredible. There's a lot of young guys. There's Danny Bryant. There's Ollie Brown. There's, I think, Philip Sace. I've known him since he was a teenager. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, Philip is incredible.
He's incredible. And Mitch Laddie, are you familiar with him?
Yep.
that guy, he plays everything, every style of music. And that's another one. When he was 15, I invited him. I heard him play. He came into the dressing room with his dad. I handed him my guitar, and he just sat in the dressing room. And I'm like, wow, kid. I invited him to play in Holland at the Paradiso with me, and I told him the head of my record label's going to be there. And Mitch, at age 15 or 16, got a record deal with Pro Vogue, and I played on his first record. And I'm just so happy for these guys because they have the talent. And talent is a unique and precious thing that we should all encourage, and we should all love it, and we should all just, hey, that's great. Because there are, as you are aware, a lot of people out there who have just a very small amount of talent, and they're making millions of bucks doing this. And then there are some incredible artists who have to struggle and struggle. This is a tough, I hate even using the word business because I just want to be an artist. But if you're an artist, this is a tough world to enter. This music business is tough.
What are your thoughts on the current blues rock scene right now?
I think it's healthy. I think there's so many great young players coming up. And there's a lot of female great guitar players now, which is, I remember during the pandemic, Fender announced that half of their guitars were being sold to females, and they thought that was amazing. So you're getting all these smoking great players of both genders, right? And many young players coming up. And I don't think, it's easy to get worried about like AI and all that. But I think somebody playing an instrument and singing from their heart to you is never going to go out of style and never get old, because that is something that appeals to the person's humanity.
Right.
To me, this is all about connection. And yesterday, when those people were standing up and some of them were crying, and yesterday, all those people there were a community. And at that point, when we're all a community, it doesn't matter who you vote for. We're all together in our common humanity right there. And this is, again, my wife. She says, this needs to be about bringing people together. And she has really made me understand that. This music can bring people together and be the antidote to the polarization.
Absolutely, and we definitely saw that in your performance last night. You mentioned AI, artificial intelligence. A lot of people are talking about it in music right now. What are your thoughts on AI?
There's parts of it that scare me a lot, but I try to remain optimistic, like what I just told you about. It is my fervent hope and belief that someone playing and singing from their heart is never going to go out of style. There's always going to be a need for someone to reach out to someone else through music or through art, through painting or through dance or through literature, to reach that person's heart and soul. And that's one thing a computer can't do. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a soul. People do, and that's where this music, that's to me where any form of art needs to come from, your heart and your soul, and try to connect with someone. It's about connection.
Totally. So Walter, every time I talk to guitar players, I love to ask them what makes a great guitar player, because it's such a subjective thing and everyone has their own kind of opinion on it.
Sure.
So in your opinion, what makes a great guitar player?
Instead of saying what makes a guitar player great, what appeals to me, I'm always amazed and my jaw is on the floor at technical wizards, people who are almost, not even human. Watch Sean Lane and go, that guy's not even human. That's not humanly possible. But it doesn't Speak to me. I'd rather hear B.B. King play one note. But you see, this is just my opinion, right? I look for the feeling and the soul. And that's why somebody like B.B. King or Stevie Ray or Buddy Guy or Albert Collins or somebody like that, who it's more about the heart and the soul. Steve Lukather. These are the guys who I admire. I do think the greatest electric guitarist that I ever heard that appealed to me was Jeff Beck. And we did a show with him in Holland. And my wife and I were able to sort of stand in the monitor booth and watch him from 10 feet away. And that, he destroyed me. He not only wowed me technically, but he made me cry. It wasn't just technique. It was soul and emotion and feeling and expression. He spoke through his guitar. And I saw Jimi Hendrix live. I stood 5 feet away from him when I was a teenager.
What was that like?
Incredible. You know, I mean, it was amazing. I saw the Cream. I saw Jimi Hendrix. I saw both of those bands literally from the front row. It was great, you know, but I was like 17 or 18. And I can honestly say that Jeff Beck show that we watched, I came out of that. It's hard to even talk about what he did to me with his playing. And so that guy, to me, was the greatest I ever heard.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
We talked about how you enjoy mentoring other artists and you use your platform to help younger artists. What advice would you give for the younger generation, for the up-and-coming guitar players who want to make it in the music business?
As far as being an artist, hold on to your desire to create, to connect, play from your heart and your soul. Be honest in what you're putting out. Skip the facade, skip the persona. But as far as the music business these days, a lot of it is beyond my understanding with the streaming and all the stuff. I think it's got to be in some ways a little rough to get going these days. Now, you do have the internet. You can get your music out there, but when I came up, it was you try to get a record deal, you know, and you're lucky if you get a record deal, and then you try to sell albums, and then you try to sell CDs and all of that. So the business is kind of, I'm out of the loop. I'm established. I have gigs. I have a record deal with a label that I love. I have all the work I can stand. But the business end of it, I can't give any advice on that. But musically, I can tell them what Duke Ellington told me when I was 10 years old. And I sat on a couch with him and talked for an hour. And he told me, be an artist. Don't work. He told me the public is fickle. One year they'll love you, and the next year they'll hate you. He said, all you can do is make the most honest art that you can create, your music, and keep your focus on doing the best work you have it in you to do. And if you've done that, you may get rich, you may not, but you can look in the mirror and go, I gave them the best I have to give. And it'll either work or it won't. But you have to maintain your sense of self, and you have to put that into what you're doing with all the honesty that you can muster.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Walter, I've really appreciated this conversation. It's been great having you here back in Omaha. You know, it was a very emotional show, very powerful show. Really enjoyed it. Any final thoughts for the viewers out there? Anything you want to get out there?
You know, I think it's very important that people keep supporting live music in this day and age. It's very easy to go online and see some pretty girl in a bikini dancing around with dancers and all this. But people who are playing guitars and singing and writing their own music and having being about the music It is incredibly important that you support that. You go see the people you like their music. You support them. You buy their music, because it's tough to get, unless you're some massive act now, it's tough to get by. With streaming, it pays nothing.
Right.
So just support the live music. Support your favorite artists. They need your support these days.
Well said.
We all do.
Well said. Thanks for your time.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
All right.
And I love your website.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. He's Walter Trout. I'm Pete Francis. This is the Blues Rock Show. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.